Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all having a good week and a good Thursday thus far. I'm joined here once again with our senior attorney in the office, Scott Emmerich. We're going to talk about a recent federal court case that he filed today. Actually, it's an interesting case. I'm glad we are filing. Now this one has to do with a FOIA request. So I guess to start off, to tell our listeners and viewers, some may not know, what is a FOIA request?
So FOIA stands for the Freedom of Information Act.
Right.
Passed by Congress with the idea that people should have the rights to see government documents.
Yep.
To understand, to kind of peek behind the curtain of government operations.
Mm-hmm.
It's in public interest that the government be clear.
Yep. Transparent, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Right.
Transparent. And so that's what we did.
Cool.
So we had filed some months ago a request under the Freedom of Information Act to the State Department.
Yeah.
To ask them how this gentleman from Iran, who is the son of the Vice President of Women's Affairs in Iran,
right,
got into the U.S. Like I said, his mother's the Vice President of Women's Affairs in Iran government right now. And she was part of the terrorist group that actually took hostage U.S. citizens in Iran in the 70s.
In the 70s, and that's when U.S. citizens, even U.S. diplomats as well?
Yeah, U.S. diplomats, citizens were held hostage for 444 days from 1979 to 80.
Subject to some harsh conditions as well while they were being held hostage.
Yes. One of the plaintiffs in our action, Barry Rosen, wrote an affidavit for this complaint, and he describes being beaten, being tortured. He describes being threatened with execution.
Yep.
He describes that one of the hardest things was that over the course of his 444 days, he estimates he spent about 20 minutes outside. The rest were in a cell.
Yeah, I remember reading his declaration actually, and it was pretty powerful. Now, so this woman who was the leader of Women Affairs, was that it? Sorry.
Yeah, so at the time she was the spokesperson for the terrorist group. She was known as Mary.
Okay.
She was very eloquent.
Yeah.
She was fluent in English, obviously, and she became the spokesperson for this terrorist group.
Now, is she still involved with the with Iran?
Yeah, so she's the Vice President of Women's Affairs in Iran right now.
And does that have a connection with the IRGC?
Well, I mean, IRGC is a part of Iranian military.
Okay.
And their sole job is really to keep these, authoritarians in power. So there's that connection, of course. But I mean, she's a member of the Iranian government. The Iranian government, supports Hamas. They support Hezbollah. They support various other terrorist groups around the globe, and are one of 4 countries that the U.S. designates as state sponsors of terror.
Okay. So, with that said, then if you are in a position such as hers, then I would imagine you are ineligible for a U.S. visa because you support terrorist activities.
There is no doubt in my mind she should be designated as a terrorist herself.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't get a visa herself.
Okay.
Now, our inquiry is to how her son got the visa.
Right.
There's various ways that maybe he could have links as well. Now, he came to the U.S. supposedly on a student visa.
Right.
If you're coming to the U.S. on a student visa, you're not allowed to work.
Okay.
You're not allowed to work. You have to show the U.S. government you have money.
Okay.
The U.S. government does not allow funds associated with the Iranian government and the State Bank of Iran into the United States. We have sanctions on them.
Okay.
So our question is, where's
the money come from?
What did he show the U.S. government his money was from?
Yep.
Did the U.S. government even check? Who authorized in the end, who gave the approval for this guy to get a visa? That's what we're interested in.
All valid information, in my opinion, as well as has great public interest, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's in our opinion, it's got to be either one of 2 things: government malfeasance or straight up corruption.
Okay. Now, when we filed that FOIA request, what was the response? Did we get the documents we requested?
No, they declined. The State Department declined the FOIA, stating that we didn't have this man's signature authorizing them to release it.
Okay.
So we appealed, and they denied the appeal again.
And
so now we're taking it to court.
And that's what led us to federal court, correct?
Yeah.
Great. Now, who are the plaintiffs, so we can talk about that?
The plaintiffs is our firm,
Yeah.
who filed the original FOIA request. A group of a nonprofit organization called Hostage Aid Worldwide.
Okay.
And they are a nonprofit that seek to aid victims of hostages, as well as try to change the circumstances in which hostage taking is a kind of diplomacy action or a kind of a seen as a viable option for things. They're trying to change that.
Okay.
And lastly, Barry Rosen, who was one of the captives of the Iranian terrorist group in the 70s.
Interesting. Okay, so when do we... That's great. It seems like, a very pertinent issue to be, in my opinion, and hopefully we do uncover some information or documents that lead to some of these, to answers to these questions that we have, right? And
Hopefully, we'll see.
That I would imagine when the public hears about this story that the public would have the same questions.
I would think.
Yeah. When do you expect any kind of response?
We just filed today, so we're going to be serving the summons on them. So anywhere between 60 and 90 days. 60
and 90 days? Okay. Well, I know you're busy. Thank you for sitting down with me and taking some time to explain the federal court case that was just filed. If you, the listeners and or viewers, have any questions about this or any other kind of federal litigation questions that have to do with FOIA, immigration, please do not hesitate to reach out. Again, this is Alex. I'm with Scott. We're with the Bloor Carl Immigration Group. Have a good rest of your week and a good weekend.